round are really good players. So, people ask, well, what do some of these draft analysis people know, like Mel Kiper and others, and say, you know what? Well, for the most part, if the top 32 players in the draft are really well known and they tend to get drafted early and they tend to become Pro Bowlers, so you'd say, hey, those were solid picks. So as you can see, the coefficients going from, for every pick, instance of the pick. So if you're the first pick, chance to be a Pro Bowler is slightly negative, the log odds, and then going to being 255. So usually there's about 255 players drafted. Extremely negative, right? So as you can see, even at at the 10, there's a pretty significant difference. So the top 10 players, this would suggest, are really well known. The top 50 players are really well known. Beyond that, 51 to 100, and after 100, you can say there's a huge difference there. So for the most part, all the best players go early, and then after that, it's kind of anyone's guess. All right, so let's talk about our worst drafting teams. I've been beating up on the Raiders, and there's a reason why. So these are the worst drafting teams. So the Eagles, Jaguars, Cincinnati Bengals, my Denver Broncos. I'm born and raised in Colorado. I'm a Bronco fan my entire life. So I do want to make sure I do stay in allegiances. But yeah, hey, seventh worst drafting team here. So you definitely would say, we're going to draft picks. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Detroit Lions, Jets, Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Rams, and the Oakland Raiders. So actually, I need to change that from Oakland to Las Vegas, but the Raiders. I did go through and change over. So the fact the Raiders are the Raiders, the Oakland Raiders, old Los Angeles Raiders, and the Rams are the Rams, plus they got the previously St. Louis Rams. It was interesting, though, before I went through the lookup table and changed them over, I just went ahead and took the data in. In certain cases, you had situations where the St. Louis Rams drafted a lot better than the LA Rams did. And, you had a situation where the Oakland Raiders were still a bad drafting team. However, the Las Vegas Raiders were slightly better, but slightly better, and so forth. And actually, another team was the Chargers, where the LA Chargers, didn't draft as well as the San Diego Chargers. So you can see that basically, with that, what I deduced from that was the fact that you had teams in a certain period of time where, hey, when they were the San Diego Chargers up to a couple of years ago, they were a pretty solid team. They were drafting well. They've moved, and maybe they haven't been drafting as well as the years have progressed. However, over the past 20 years is a pretty good metric to see how well a team has done as far as being able to draft. So, as I mentioned previously, the Dallas Cowboys have been the best drafting teams. So, it's really interesting. Some people accuse me of being a Dallas Cowboy hater or whatnot. I did live in San Antonio and they were on TV, but I will state that, I will, print out what is here and what is in the model. You can see, hey, Dallas Cowboys are ranked number one as far as the best drafting teams. Baltimore Ravens very close behind, down to Minnesota Vikings. So people will wonder, well, Kyle Bowler, why was he seen as such a draft bust? As you can say, hey, you know what? Baltimore Ravens have been the second best drafting team over the last 20 years. They don't make that many mistakes, especially high in the draft. And when they do, it's going to show up. And Green Bay Packers, Steelers, Chiefs, Chargers, have been a great drafting team. Seattle Seahawks, New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers, Minnesota Vikings. So conversely, you can see these teams have been pretty solid over the years, as far as play. So you could, again, I'm not going to statistically state, hey, this drafting translates into victories. But as you can see, these are some really good teams that have done pretty well. You got the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 years ago, won the Super Bowl. Seahawks have got a Super Bowl victory. New Orleans Saints have been a quality football team. and so forth. So as you can see that to be on this list, if you do draft well and develop your players well, then it will lead to victory. So in the future explorations, I'm gonna try to say, well, you know what? Is there a way to say, hey, does drafting lead to does drafting and picking the best players lead to future wins? So that's definitely something I can look forward to in the future in doing that. All right, moving right along. We mentioned the Oakland Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys. So at log odds, right? I won't get into too much of that. Being drafted by the Oakland Raiders versus Dallas Cowboys, the same as being drafted 49 spots in the overall order. So all things being true, if you were drafted by the Oakland Raiders as the number 1 pick, and then you were drafted by the Dallas Cowboys 49 picks later, so you're about the 17th pick in the 2nd round, all things being equal, statistically speaking, you'd have the same chance of being a Pro Bowler. So that's just how much better the Dallas Cowboys have been at drafting players than the Oakland Raiders. Pretty crazy, right? So you can do a lot more of that as comparisons, by looking at the logistical regression of other matters. Okay, now moving right along. Let's look at some of these positional coefficients, right? So as you can see, the very top, we got a tight end fullback was the highest coefficient as far as making the Pro Bowl. We had one problem with this. There's only been one tight end fullback, Delaney Walker. He was listed as a tight end fullback coming out of college. So I actually tried to get a hold of Delaney and say, hey, do you think that the fact you play tight end fullback helps you up? It's tough to say. Conversely, the hardest position to make the Pro Bowl is inside linebacker. Probably because of the fact that, inside linebacker, there's a lot of inside linebackers who were drafted. And the fact that, it's going to be a lot of competition, not necessarily as used as they used to be, right? The tough middle linebackers who hold the plug and stop fullbacks, not necessarily in the football anymore. Kick returner. There's been only 3 pure kick returners listed as kick returners that have been picked. So Pharaoh Cooper made a Pro Bowl. Trenton Holiday and Scotty McGee were the other 2. The only player listed as a kick returner wide receiver combo, a guy by the name of Cedric Steptoe, not a Pro Bowler. He was the only guy. So that's the reason why the log odds are so low for a kick returner wide receiver. And other positions. Now, someone was also asking me, well, are you going to go and try to standardize the positions? And so for right now, I'm going to leave them as they are listed, on my data, on my web scraping. So as they're listed on the Wikipedia page, we're going to leave them there. So as you can see, you got like a nose tackle, you get defensive end, you got outside linebacker and others. So you start to say, well, is somebody a linebacker? They're outside linebacker, or there's something else, or they're inside linebacker. So you do have some situations, but if someone is stated as an inside linebacker, their probability to be very low. Outside linebacker a little bit higher, as you can see here, and further on. Again, kick returner was high, only 3. Punter and kicker. Let's talk about punter, kickers, and long snappers. As I mentioned, there's only 255 players that are going to be drafted. So punters, kickers, and long snappers are generally not drafted. If they are, in the later rounds. So if you do if you use a pick on one of those 3 and they do not make a Pro Bowl, it's not going to look good for your team. So therefore, the ones that are drafted generally make a Pro Bowl because they are really good and they're able to translate their skills from college into the pros. As you can see, there's always exceptions. Then we got running back. Definitely, it's almost 0 there. So almost to the point where if you're drafted as a running back, it's one of those where the probability is essentially 0. So it's not for you or against you. It's not positive, negative, it's almost 0. Fullback, just slightly negative. Not a lot of fullbacks are there in some of these other positions. One thing to note, free safeties in the Pro Bowl, as far as the model goes, is only 1. As was mentioned this year, Justin Simmons, the player for the Denver Broncos, he did not make the Pro Bowl. He made it last year. He was a free safety, so he was a free safety. And one of the issues was the fact that there's only one free safety position. He was beat out by Kevin Byard from the Tennessee Titans, so it could be very difficult to make it to the Pro Bowl as a free safety. Right, the Vice is a strong safety. They take like 3, so it really depends there. However, there's also a lot less free safeties who are drafted, so in certain cases it does work out. All righty, let's move on. So who are the next Pro Bowlers? All right, so according to the model, I ran the model and I scored on future data. So I ran this. And I said, okay, here are the players that were ranked 1 to 15, or who were likely to be Pro Bowlers, depending on the covariates. The covariates being the team, the pick, and the position. So I ran it. The highest was Kyle Pitts, and guess what? Was right on the money. So in this case, the model worked. So he went to Atlanta Falcons, a fairly decent, probably a mid-range drafting team. He played tight end. He was drafted. He was a 4th pick. And, hey, so basically the model, so the Falcons knew what they were selecting. He was a tight end. They used a very high, they used a high pick on him. So far, it's already paid dividends because he made a Pro Bowl. Najee Harris. So again, Steelers, great drafting team, 24th pick. Running back, and so far he has not made a Pro Bowl. He has